Because he is trying to get attention, he's trying to stay in the limelight and keep in the public eye, or is he
what I want to do is do you some serious damage. Are you hearing me, you pig? So get plenty of steroids and juice down you, mate, because I will fight you tomorrow, today, anytime.
Careful about what he's saying, the way he was saying it. But then in hindsight, he's thinking, shit,
Carl Froch just unleashed absolute hell on John Fury, and what started as steroid accusations has turned into the most brutal verbal beatdown in boxing history. The Cobra is done playing games, and he's about to expose everything that's wrong with the Fury family empire.
On the back of a bigger offer. So he might be trying to be sneaky and put himself in a better financial position. But either way, I don't like the...
So here's where this whole mess exploded. John Fury, desperate for headlines and clinging to relevance through his son's success, decided to throw around steroid accusations after seeing Froch's brutal training footage. But this wasn't just some casual comment. This was a calculated attack from a man who knows his own fighting days are long behind him. Froch immediately saw through the BS and fired back with the kind of precision that made him a four-time world champion. He called out John Fury for what he really is, a headline-chasing patriarch who's embarrassing himself and his family with these desperate, baseless accusations. And honestly, Froch's right. When you're reduced to throwing around drug allegations because someone looks too fit in their training clips, you've already lost the argument.
Box you for free. Not box you, fight you for free. I've got fame, I've got money, I've got enough. But what I want to do is do you some serious damage. Are you hearing me, you pig? So get plenty of steroids.
But here's where it gets absolutely wild. Froch wasn't content to just defend himself. He went nuclear on John Fury's entire motivation, exposing this as nothing more than money-driven positioning and sneaky games. The Cobra made it crystal clear that he's fed up with the pissing around and childish antics that seem to follow the Fury name wherever it goes. This isn't about fighting or boxing legacy. This is about a desperate man trying to stay relevant by attaching himself to real fighters' names. Froch sees it for what it is: pure theater designed to generate buzz and cash, not settle any real beef. And when a Hall of Fame fighter calls you out for playing games instead of being serious about combat, that's not just criticism. That's a professional assassination.
Carl's a genuine, world champion level fighter, and he's actually bigger than you'd think, right, when you meet him. He's a lot younger than John, and his peak was outrageously good, right? And he's kept himself in shape. And even now, I remember having a chat with Eddie Hearn, about what fighter you've met is the toughest fighter. And he said to me, if I'm ever in a bit of bother, the man I want standing next to me at a pub or whatever is called fucking John.
Now John Fury's response? Absolutely pathetic. The man throws out full-on threats, claiming he'll do serious damage to Carl Froch while peppering his outburst with more steroid accusations. He's calling Froch a doser, whatever the hell that means, but it comes off more desperate than dangerous. Here's the reality check John Fury needs: empty threats don't intimidate world champions. Froch's record and reputation make it clear that all the loud words in the world won't change the fact that Fury's never faced anyone close to elite level. This is a man who's built his entire identity around his son's achievements, and now he's trying to convince people he could hang with a legitimate Hall of Famer. It's embarrassing to watch.
to get his attention, to get everybody's attention, and then he didn't need to do any more because that's what everybody's talking about. I think Carl is a straight shooter, so Carl.
And get this, the boxing community is absolutely destroying John Fury's credibility. Eddie Hearn admits Froch is the man you want by your side when things get dangerous, highlighting his world-class skill, peak conditioning, and surprising size for someone who's been retired. Pain Game doesn't hold back when describing Froch's dominance, pointing out that his legacy isn't built on hype like so many others. It's built on results, fear, and sheer presence both inside and outside the ring. Meanwhile, what's John Fury's fighting resume? What elite opponents has he faced? What titles has he won? The answer is nothing, and that's exactly why this whole situation is so ridiculous.
Fight anybody, but that doesn't mean he was going to beat everybody, but he never turned the fight down and he would never back away. And he wouldn't even train for fights, he'd just get in another.
Here's what makes this even more brutal. Bonnie Nelson paints Froch as the ultimate straight shooter who cuts through all the noise with relentless honesty. The Cobra doesn't need to hype himself or chase headlines. One bold statement is enough to grab attention because people know he backs up his words. This integrity and confidence make him dangerous in a way John Fury will never understand. Fury's all bluster and theatrics, while Froch operates with the quiet confidence of someone who's proven himself at the highest level. When Froch speaks, it carries weight because he's earned that respect through actual accomplishments, not family connections.
I'm saying, let's just forget the human. You know, we're human, so you're going to get human behaviour, human reaction. That's how it is. And I'm quite sure if JJ had somebody like his pops to get in front of the camera and get...
But wait, it gets worse for John Fury. Dominic Ingle lays it bare. While Froch stepped into fights with skill and courage against elite opposition, John relies on posturing and threats against people who can't or won't fight back. Froch's record proves he can dominate in the ring without hype, while Fury's bravado is just smoke and mirrors designed to hide his complete lack of legitimate fighting credentials. This is exactly why Froch sees right through the big man's bluff. When you face the best fighters in the world and conquered them, dealing with a loudmouth patriarch becomes child's play.
And then there's Froch, who's been paid to fight. He's used to getting money for knocking guys out. I'm sure if they put enough knocks in front of Cole's Froch, in front of Cole's Froch, then he might rise to it. But he ain't going to rise to it if there's no money on the table, if there's no end goal. If you want to punch.
Now listen to this part, because it gets even more revealing. Johnny Nelson highlights how John Fury's reactions show he struggles to control his temper, unlike Froch, who lets skill and precision speak for him. Fury's theatrics are more about ego than ability, and his over-the-top public anger just exposes him as a paper tiger. If Fury really had the discipline and focus of a legitimate fighter, he could earn respect through actions instead of words. But right now, every outburst just reinforces how far he is from being a serious threat to anyone with real fighting experience.
You've got to do a job on them. You've got to show me, like I said, that you can even stay on your feet for 3 minutes or 2-minute rounds, whatever it is.
Here's the kicker that absolutely destroys John Fury's credibility. Duke McKenzie points out the key truth: Froch fights with purpose, skill, and history on his side, while John Fury depends on spectacle and money-driven threats. Froch thrives when the stakes are real and the pressure is on. Fury only shows aggression when there's a financial angle or cameras rolling. This exposes Fury's fundamental weakness. Without hype or cash incentives, he's far from dangerous. Froch's legacy makes him untouchable compared to Fury's shallow posturing, and everyone in boxing knows it.
You, my friend, I know nobody else either on this planet. If it makes business sense, you know, but them other people don't generate any money, you know, but you do. Next world champion, people still love you.
And here's where Froch delivers the knockout blow. The Cobra makes it brutally clear that John Fury is in over his head, demanding proof that Fury can even last a few minutes without collapsing under real pressure. His words strip away all the theatrics and expose Fury's threats as empty bravado from a man who's never been tested. This isn't just a physical challenge. It's a public humiliation designed to call out Fury's complete lack of real ability and endurance. Froch's confidence, skill, and sharp tactical mind shine through, showing the Fury patriarch that posturing and big talk won't stand up against a proven world champion ready to exploit every weakness.
I watched Carl Froch getting knocked down by George Groves. He was gone. Carl Froch has an incredible...
But hold up, because John Fury's response proves everything Froch is saying. Fury steps forward claiming he won't back down, but immediately starts throwing around his usual money-driven logic. He frames this as a business opportunity rather than a real fight, proving once again that his confidence is all spectacle and no substance. Froch sees straight through it. Fury talks about popularity and money, not skill or toughness. The Cobra doesn't need hype because he has experience, titles, and brutal efficiency. While Fury blusters about financial sense and public appeal, Froch is quietly calculating, knowing this is more talk than action from someone who's never proven himself when it matters.
Win the fights that he's had with the great champions, and he's come out of the sport intact. For John Fury to be calling out Carl Froch on his opinion, because Carl Froch is entitled to give his opinion in boxing. If you can't have freedom of speech, what was the point of these men and women dying in the world wars, giving their lives in vain?
What do you think would actually happen if John Fury and Carl Froch, as he is...
Carl Froch could stand there and say to John, I'll give you 2 free shots, John. Hit me with your right hand and hit me with your left.
Now here's where the boxing experts completely annihilate John Fury's credibility. Joe Egan doesn't mince words. Carl Froch would utterly destroy John Fury if this fight ever happened. Egan paints Fury as nothing more than a bully who relies on intimidation rather than skill, while Froch is a Hall of Famer with a history of dismantling top-level fighters through technical mastery and mental toughness. Every punch, every strategy, and every round Froch has fought proves he's operating on a completely different level than Fury's amateur theatrics. Egan's assessment is simple and devastating. Fury can bark all he wants, but when he steps into any kind of competitive situation with the Cobra, he's a dead man walking.
I'd like to say yes. If it is going to happen, I'd like to be the one to make it happen. But we'll see.
What would you say is more realistic? Carl Froch versus John Fury or Carl Froch versus Darren Till?
John Fury versus...
And get this, Joe Egan pulls no punches when exposing John Fury's bluff for what it really is. Fury's claims of toughness crumble under even basic scrutiny, as Egan highlights his complete avoidance of facing anyone with legitimate fighting credentials. Calling Fury a fake hard man, Egan makes it crystal clear that Fury relies on intimidation and theatrics against people who won't fight back, not skill or courage against real opposition. Froch, by contrast, is calm, prepared, and proven in the ring against elite competition. Every threat Fury throws only reinforces how completely out of his depth he really is when confronted with genuine fighting ability.
Because he called me a fake and a fraud, fake hard man. I will show him how much of a fake hard man I am. He's the one that's shying away.
But here's what really exposes John Fury's weakness. Eddie Hearn underscores exactly how fragile Fury's bravado becomes when confronted with a real fighter like Carl Froch. Hearn suggests Fury would be chin-checked immediately if he tried to get in Froch's space, emphasizing that Fury's threats only work because people haven't seen him face a legitimate opponent who can actually fight back. The comparison is absolutely stark. Froch thrives under pressure using skill, strategy, and experience, while Fury depends on spectacle and loudmouth antics against people who can't or won't retaliate. Against the Cobra, Fury's intimidation tactics are meaningless, and any real confrontation would expose every flaw he tries to mask with ego and noise.
Fury stuck it on Carl Froch in his space. I think he would chin him immediately.
Really? Even live on net?
Now here's where it gets really interesting. Adam Smith breaks down the brewing tension, pointing out that this clash stems from Froch calling out the Furies on his channel for their various antics and lack of professionalism. Smith makes it clear that while Froch isn't avoiding any kind of confrontation, John Fury is reacting purely from ego, not from any position of strength or skill. The Cobra thrives on precision, experience, and pure ring intelligence that comes from facing the best fighters in the world, while Fury relies on theatrics and posturing that work against civilians but crumble against professionals. Smith notes that their interactions are partly entertainment, but the underlying edge comes from Froch's undeniable superiority in every measurable category.
Having a go at the Furies, probably over his time on his channel, maybe, I'm guessing, and John didn't like that and wants to have a fight with him, something like that.
It was something like that. I don't think he was necessarily turning down a fight.
What I do know is that John Fury and Carl Froch on the cobbles will be fun.
And here's what makes John Fury look even more pathetic. Liam Go highlights just how transparent Fury's approach really is. While Fury throws around big words about fighting Froch, it's always conditional on getting paid enough money to make it worth his time. Froch, on the other hand, treats it seriously and has even suggested charity as a potential outcome, showing this is about principle rather than profit. This contrast reveals everything you need to know. Froch fights for legacy and pride, while Fury fights for spectacle and cash. Go emphasizes that Froch's repeated callouts expose Fury as a man who won't step up when challenged, and Fury's hesitation and focus on money make him look weak and opportunistic against Froch's consistent professionalism.
And Gold and Carl Froch, and I know John Fury doesn't like Carl Froch. Carl Froch mentions him, although I haven't really watched much of Carl Froch's videos lately. But Carl Froch, I know, has mentioned John Fury in the past. He's had a go with John Fury. They actually talked about having an actual, was it an exhibition or a boxing type match? And John Fury, any man, any time, was saying words to the effect of, "Oh, I'll fight you, Carl Froch, but the money has to be right." And Carl Froch basically said, "All right, well, if we arrange payment, it can go to charity."
Carl Froch doesn't...
Here's where Froch delivers the most brutal reality check in boxing history. The Cobra dismantles all of John Fury's illusions, pointing out his age, complete lack of conditioning, and total unpreparedness for anything approaching a real fight. As a four-time world champion and Hall of Famer who's faced elite opposition on the biggest stages, including Wembley Stadium in front of 80,000 fans, Froch isn't talking hype. He's stating facts that can't be disputed. Fury's posturing and loud threats are exposed as absolutely laughable next to Froch's legitimate legacy, proven skill, and iron discipline. Every grudge match and title fight Froch has won proves he thrives under pressure, while Fury relies on ego-driven theatrics that fool nobody with actual fighting experience.
What makes you think we can fill the Wembley Stadium? Me and you. Listen, you're 59 years old. You're obviously not in shape. I'm Carl Froch, the Cobra, Hall of Famer, 4 times world champ. I don't talk about it much, but I once boxed at Wembley Stadium in front of 80,000 people, and it was a big grudge match between 2 top world level.
But wait, there's more psychological warfare happening here. A Davies offers an insider perspective that further highlights John Fury's fundamental flaws as both a fighter and a man. While Fury presents himself as fearless and ready for any confrontation, his aggression is mostly fueled by his obsession with his son's careers rather than his own abilities. Davies points out that Fury reacts emotionally rather than strategically, making him completely predictable and vulnerable when challenged by someone like Carl Froch, who approaches every interaction with calm precision, vast experience, and tactical awareness. Where Fury rants and raves, Froch calculates and strategizes, exposing Fury's over-reliance on ego and posturing as loud but completely ineffective.
What John does, he's very, very, very passionate around his sons when they're fighting, and it gets something out of him. I spoke to him, right, literally face to face, and I said, well, you know, what is upset? He said, I don't want people calling me out because I'll take any man.
And here's what makes this whole situation even more embarrassing for John Fury. Pain Game absolutely dismantles Fury's ridiculous public antics, showing just how desperate and absurd he comes across to anyone paying attention. While most parents share pictures or moments about their children with normal pride, Fury chooses bizarre, over-the-top theatrics that make him look more like a sideshow attraction than a respected figure in boxing. His obsession with showing off and constantly referencing his son's achievements only highlights his own insecurity and desperate need for attention that he can't generate through his own accomplishments. Compared to Carl Froch, who commands respect through skill, legacy, and professionalism, Fury's behavior screams immaturity and ego-driven posturing that embarrasses everyone associated with him.
Of the king of the world. I think he's referring to Tyson Fury. You know, when you have kids, you know, most people, when they want to talk about their children, they might pull their mobile phone out and show a few pictures. Big John just shows you his balls. That's where they came from. If there's anyone who needs a Manscaped advert, it's fucking John.
The stage is set.
So there you have it. The contrast couldn't be more obvious or more devastating for John Fury. Carl Froch brings unmatched experience, discipline, and a legacy of dismantling the best fighters in the world, while John Fury relies on theatrics, ego, and empty threats that crumble under any real scrutiny. Every comment, every stunt, and every public display from Fury only underscores how completely out of his depth he really is when confronted with genuine fighting excellence. Froch doesn't need hype because his record, skill, and cold precision speak louder than any words ever could. This isn't just a mismatch. It's a masterclass in how real champions handle fake tough guys who have built their entire identity on other people's achievements. The question isn't whether Froch would win, it's how quickly he'd expose John Fury as the paper tiger he's always been. So who are you backing? Froch's calculated brutality and proven excellence, or Fury's ego-driven theatrics and empty posturing? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, smash that like button if this breakdown opened your eyes to what's really happening, and subscribe for more brutal truth about the boxing world's biggest frauds. I'll see you in the next one. Here's the thing that makes this whole situation even more insane. John Fury just proved every single point Carl Froch made about him. Instead of backing down or showing any class, Fury doubled down on his delusions and actually challenged Froch to meet him at a specific location. This isn't confidence. This is pure desperation from a man who's been publicly humiliated and doesn't have the intelligence to recognize when he's been outclassed. Psychological warfare worked perfectly, getting under Fury's skin so badly that he's now making specific threats and trying to turn this into some kind of street confrontation. But here's what Fury doesn't understand: Froch real fighters don't need to make appointments to prove their toughness. What's even more pathetic is how John Fury keeps bringing up money and business opportunities every time someone calls his bluff. The man literally cannot separate fighting from financial gain, which tells you everything about his mentality. He's not a fighter, he's a businessman cosplaying as a tough guy. Carl Froch built his entire career on the principle that some things are more important than money, legacy, respect, and proving you're the best. When Froch stepped into the ring with Kessler, Ward, or Groves, he wasn't calculating profit margins. He was calculating how to destroy elite-level opposition through superior skill and mental toughness. Fury's obsession with getting paid for everything exposes him as someone who's never fought for anything meaningful in his life. And let's talk about the elephant in the room, John Fury's complete inability to handle criticism like an adult. Every time someone questions his legitimacy or calls out his behavior, he explodes into these embarrassing public meltdowns that make him look more like a spoiled child than a serious person. Real champions like Carl Froch use criticism as motivation to prove doubters wrong through performance, not tantrums. Froch's entire career was built on silencing critics by dismantling their arguments in the ring, one devastating punch at a time. Fury's approach is to get louder, make bigger threats, and hope people forget he's never actually backed up any of his tough talk against legitimate opposition. But here's where it gets really interesting from a psychological perspective. John Fury's behavior patterns show classic signs of someone living vicariously through other people's achievements, while desperately trying to convince the world he's relevant on his own merit. His constant references to his son's success, his obsession with being in their spotlight, and his need to insert himself into every major boxing conversation reveals a man who's deeply insecure about his own legacy. Carl Froch doesn't need to ride anyone's coattails because he created his own legendary status through blood, sweat, and championship-level performances. The contrast is so stark it's almost painful to watch Fury embarrass himself over and over again. What makes this even more brutal is how the entire boxing community has essentially written John Fury off as a serious person. When respected analysts, former champions, and industry insiders all agree that someone is operating purely on hype and delusion, that's not bias. That's consensus based on observable reality. Froch commands universal respect because his achievements speak for themselves, while Fury is becoming a punchline that people tolerate because of his family connections. The man has turned himself into boxing's most embarrassing patriarch, and every public appearance only reinforces why nobody takes his fighting claims seriously. This isn't just about one feud, it's about credibility, and Fury's completely destroyed his own.